I live in what's called the St. John Valley up in northern Aroostook County, Maine. It's a quiet place surrounded by dense forests and open fields, hugging the Canadian border, the textbook picture of rural New England tranquility. The kind of place where the biggest news might be a truck careening into a moose or who won whatever award at the local fair, but since the very early 2000s, something strange has been happening here that no one can explain, and it's left an indelible mark on the fabric of our community. It all started back in February of '02 with a broadcast that sent the entire valley into a state of panic. An emergency alert system, EAS, was triggered, a message that terrified everyone who heard it. I've got the transcript of the first alert below. EAS tone. This is the emergency alert system. The following message is transmitted at the request of local authorities in Aroostook County, Maine. Residents of Limestone, Caribou, Fort Fairfield, Van Buren, and surrounding areas are advised to remain indoors immediately. At approximately 11:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, on February the 3rd, an emergency situation has been reported. Secure all doors and windows. Reports indicate that both animals and humans are exhibiting violent behavior. Avoid any contact with affected individuals or animals. Seal windows and doors to prevent exposure to the outside air, as there may be an airborne chemical or biological threat. If possible, move to a safe room or basement. Ensure that all household members are accounted for and remain calm. Do not leave your home until an all-clear signal is issued. Stay tuned to the station for further updates and instructions from local authorities. This message will repeat. EAS tone. The broadcast was chilling, and the aftermath was pure chaos. People genuinely believed that they were in imminent danger. Families barricaded themselves in their homes, sealed their windows, and armed themselves against an unseen enemy. In the aftermath, county news stations covered the story extensively, interviewing residents and experts alike. Despite the official explanation that followed the next morning, many people remained skeptical. I was just a kid back then, around 10 years old, but I remember the night clearly. My parents had just put my younger sister, Lily, to bed when the EAS tone blared through our house from our TV in the living room, a typically common occurrence many Mainers up here experience due to our harsh winters. Upon its end, my parents gave each other a look of concern and then stared blankly back at whatever was originally playing on the TV. They muttered some words I quite frankly don't recall, but soon thereafter, my father quickly sprang into action. He told my mom to gather anything we might need for the night while he started fortifying the house. I watched as he moved our heavy wooden dining table against the front door and used scrap wood and sheets to block the windows. In all the commotion and noise, Lily found her way back downstairs asking for some juice. My mom rushed around, grabbing blankets, flashlights, and whatever non-perishable food she could find. She kept telling us to not worry and that they were just preparing for a bad storm, but the shakiness in her voice betrayed her words. Lily, who was only 6 at the time, clung to me, her wide eyes filled with confusion and worry as I tried to comfort her, though I was just as scared. I remember my dad taping plastic sheets over the windows, using duct tape to seal the edges tightly. He assured us kids there was nothing to worry about, and all this was just in case. My mom led us to the basement, where she had set up a makeshift shelter. The basement was dark and musty, filled with old boxes and forgotten belongings. It wasn't the most comforting place, but it felt safer than the open rooms upstairs. We huddled together on an old couch, wrapped in blankets. My dad kept his rifle close by, a precaution he hoped he wouldn't need. We listened to the radio for updates, the eerie silence punctuated only by the occasional creak of the house settling. Every noise outside made them jump, further fueling our imaginations to run wild with thoughts of what might be happening. As the hours passed with no further information, we began to relax slightly, though none of us dared to sleep until my parents eventually took turns keeping watch, their faces etched with worry. Lily eventually drifted off, her head resting on my lap. I sat there, stroking her hair and trying to make sense of the situation. The fear in my parents' eyes was something I'd never forget. They were our protectors, and seeing them so vulnerable was unsettling. The all-clear broadcast finally came in the early hours of the morning, but it didn't bring much comfort. The authorities claimed the initial broadcast had been a mistake, a technical error. They assured us there was no danger, but the damage was already done. The trust in our community's safety was shattered, and a sense of unease lingered long after. Nothing happens up here. In the days that followed, the valley buzzed with conversations about the incident. Everyone had their own theories, from government conspiracies to supernatural explanations. Despite the official explanation, if one can even call it that, many people remained skeptical. The night became a part of our community's history, a bizarre event that no one could fully explain. As I grew older, the broadcasts continued to air sporadically. Each time, it sent a ripple of anxiety through the area, though the initial panic had dulled to a resigned acceptance. By the time I reached high school, the alert had become a sort of local legend. I became obsessed with the idea of hearing it for myself now that I was older. Hadn't caught it since that night long ago, but finally, one night, During a high school bonfire with a small group of friends, I got to the fire crackled, and the chatter of my peers filled the air, eventually drowned out by the ominous tones of the EAS. I ran to the truck radio, and there it was. The atmosphere at the party shifted instantly. Conversation stopped, and a hush fell over the group as we listened in stunned silence. The broadcast ended, and we all looked at each other, a mix of fear and excitement in our eyes. It felt surreal, like witnessing a piece of history that had come to life right before us. Over the years, these mysterious broadcasts have continued to air once or twice a year, always at exactly 11:30 p.m. The residents of Aroostook County eventually grew indifferent. The initial panic subsided, and the broadcast faded into local legend, something to be talked about at late-night gatherings and around campfires. People began to treat it like a strange, unexplainable quirk of sorts, a story to tell newcomers and a curiosity for visitors to the area, a funny prank of sorts if you happen to tell a newcomer just before one happens to air. But not for me. The mystery of these broadcasts gnawed at me, and it's why I ended up here, at WQHR as a board operator. I hoped working here at the local radio station might help me uncover some truth. I pretty much had no choice but to listen to the radio while I worked 10 hours a day. Audio engineering had been a hobby of mine and something I've hoped to get into for some time now, at least since I graduated, but I also figured it may be a good place to begin my investigation. Eventually, while on shift, I ended up catching the second of the two alerts that occurred that night. It was similar to the first, but with just enough new information to further reignite my obsession. I don't remember if I mentioned there were multiple, but this one I had never heard, even back when I was a scared little boy in my parents' basement. I guess I must have dozed off, though I have, of course, heard about it in passing, but anyways, here's the second transcript. EAS tone. This is the emergency alert system. The following message is transmitted at the request of local authorities in Aroostook County, Maine. Residents of Limestone, Caribou, Fort Fairfield, Van Buren, and surrounding areas are advised that the emergency situation reported earlier continues to persist as of 3:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, February the 4th. Residents must remain indoors and ensure all doors and windows are locked. Recent reports suggest that the emergency may involve a hazardous airborne agent, which may be contributing to violent behavior in animals and humans. Seal all openings, including windows and vents, using tape or plastic sheeting to prevent exposure to outside air. Avoid using air conditioning or heating systems that draw in outside air. Keep communication devices charged and nearby for further updates. Authorities are actively working to identify the source and nature of this emergency. An all-clear signal will be issued once it is safe to resume normal activities. Please remain on this station for ongoing updates. This message will repeat. EAS tone. The eeriness of this second alert left me more determined than ever to find out what's going on. Thing is, everyone in the great state of Maine already knows about these broadcasts. They've been happening at random for over 2 decades, but why in the world has nobody been able to solve this, or seems to even really care for that matter? 20 plus years later, nothing. Not a zip. The first couple days or so after the broadcasts began, people were genuinely frightened. Some took the warning seriously, like my parents, for instance, locking themselves in their homes, sealing windows, and waiting for the all-clear that came the next morning. But as the weeks went by, and no real emergency ever unfolded, the community grew indifferent. Years later, the broadcasts became part of the county's folklore, discussed with a mix of fascination and amusement. Kids would dare each other to stay up and listen, hoping to catch the broadcasts live. Parents would tell their stories of the event at family gatherings, a cautionary tale that had lost its sting over time. I've asked around, both officially and unofficially, but no one has any answers. Our parents' generation seems to remember the first few broadcasts causing a stir, but everyone settled into a collective state of apathy. It's as if the entire valley has just accepted this anomaly as a part of our lives. But I can't. I need to know what's happening, what happened that day. My obsession with the anomaly has driven me to the point where it's all I can think about sometimes. It's as if these broadcasts come from nowhere and disappear into thin air. Sometimes it's the second alert, other times it's the first. It's completely random, and no one has been able to notice any sort of pattern. One night, while I was working in the studio after a rare airing, happened to be the first alert this time, a regular listener called in. He claimed to remember something odd from the late 90s, a night when the air felt thick, and a strange smell lingered. He couldn't recall any specific details, but his recollection was enough to send chills down my spine. Curious to know if anyone else had a similar experience back then. At radio and television stations like the one where I work, the Emergency Alert System, EAS, operates independently of our control, relying entirely on external automation. The EAS encoder/decoder devices are designed to receive alerts from authorized agencies such as the National Weather Service or FEMA, automatically interrupting our regular programming to broadcast emergency messages without any human intervention. It's basically intended to ensure that urgent information reaches the public swiftly and efficiently. Yet, the persistent broadcasts have baffled both the valley and its local authorities for years. Despite our repeated inquiries, FEMA insists they have no clue what these unauthorized messages are and claim they have no knowledge of their origin. The situation has raised concerns about public safety, prompting local authorities to reach out to the FBI for an investigation. However, the FBI reportedly declined, further leaving us in the dark, though the unexpected refusal had only intensified my speculation. Mind you, this was only 6 months ago. My goal is to solve this mystery, not only to understand the source of these unexplained events but also to uncover any hidden truths that might be behind them. The dismissive stance of the FBI and the lack of clarity from official channels have only fueled my resolve to dig deeper. With no clear leads from the authorities, I am left to rely on my own investigation, determined to piece together this puzzle and bring clarity to this ongoing. Whatever this is. I've considered all sorts of possibilities: government experiments, supernatural occurrences, mass hallucinations, or hysteria. Each theory seems more far-fetched than the last, but in a world where the impossible sometimes happens, who's to say what's too crazy to believe? I've spent countless hours looking for similar cases, looking for any pattern or connection that could explain our predicament. For lack of a better word, searched internet forums, nothing even remotely close. I've even reached out to experts in various fields: psychologists, historians, conspiracy theorists, but no one has been able to provide a satisfactory explanation. There are some nights I can barely sleep, my mind racing with possibilities and theories. There will be no this inserted audio clip if you buy the software license key or activation key. I've considered the idea of mass hypnosis or some sort of conditioning, where an entire community is conditioned to forget certain events. It sounds far-fetched, but the more I think about it, the less I'm willing to dismiss any possibilities. What if those initial broadcasts were part of an experiment, and we were the unwitting subjects? Or what if I'm just crazy and this somehow was some sort of error? I've even considered setting up recording equipment to capture the broadcasts in real time, in case there are subtle nuances or hidden messages that we haven't noticed. Might be a good idea. Actually, I'll keep you all updated on that. It's just hard with how infrequent they occur, nor do I think my boss would appreciate that, in all honesty. My obsession has taken a toll on my personal life as well. Friends and family have grown concerned about my fixation on the long since past event. They tell me to let it go, to move on and accept that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something important here, something that needs to be uncovered. One theory that keeps nagging at me is the possibility of a cover-up. What if the initial panic in 2002 was justified, and the follow-up broadcast claiming it was a mistake was part of an effort to keep us in the dark? What if there was an actual emergency, and those in charge have been suppressing the truth ever since? The thought sends shivers down my spine, but it's a possibility I can't ignore. So, I'm turning to you, the people of the internet. Have any of you experienced something, anything at all similar in your area? Do you have any theories about what could be causing these broadcasts? And more importantly, how can I go about uncovering more info? I'm desperate for answers and willing to try anything at this point. Whether it's similar experiences from your own lives, wild theories, or practical advice on how to investigate further, I'm all ears. My investigation isn't just a hobby, it's become my life's mission. I've dedicated myself to uncovering and solving this mystery. I pored over countless hours of radio logs, scoured newspaper archives, and conducted interviews with anyone who might have a piece of the puzzle, and nothing. I know this sounds like some random idiot on the web delving into madness, but I assure you, there has to be something here. Something like that doesn't just happen on accident. It simply makes zero sense. These broadcasts have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, and I won't rest until I've uncovered their secret. So, if any of you guys have any information, no matter how small or insignificant it might seem, please share it. Together, we might be able to solve this mystery and finally bring some peace to our haunted community, and my stupid brain.